In this video, I'm going to show you the best portrait lens for the Sony A6000. Hint, it's the 35mm f1.8. Hey everybody, welcome to Dan Bullman Photography. If this is your first time watching, please be sure to hit that subscribe button down below to stay up to date on all the latest content that I'm putting out. Now let's get to it. Now if you have a Sony A6000, there are lots of different lens options out there. But if you want to shoot portraits, there are really only a couple of good focal lengths to go with in my opinion. And my favorite lens to use is actually the Sony 35mm f1.8. Now with the crop factor of the A6000, this comes out to be about a 52mm lens, which is really good for portraits because it is very flexible. It allows you to shoot a lot of different types of scenes. Some people recommend a 60mm Sigma lens or a 30mm f1.4 Sigma lens or even the 50mm 1.8. So why, in my opinion, are none of those lenses the best for portraits and actually the 35mm f1.8 is the best for portraits? Well, the first reason is that it is super flexible. So if you were shooting a lot of different types of scenes, so say you want to do environmental portraits or headshots or portraits in a city environment, you have lots of different flexibility for capturing different types of scenes. Now if you're shooting with a 50mm f1.8 or a 60mm lens, your lens is going to be a lot more cropped in, a lot more zoomed in, so it's harder to capture wider scenes. And this is particularly important if you're doing something like walking around New York City or Boston where the streets are really jammed in and it makes it very difficult to shoot portraits with a much longer focal length. So I like the 35mm because it's flexible. The second reason I like the 35mm f1.8 for portraits is that it is super sharp, super sharp. You can get really highly detailed images with the 35mm lens. And I've taken just some of my favorite portraits have been taken with this lens. And when people ask me, which lens do you use for portraits? This is the one that's on my camera most often when I'm doing a portrait shoot. Now the third reason why I like the Sony 35mm f1.8 for portraits compared to something like a Sigma lens is that it has really good autofocus. You can take advantage of all of the autofocus features that the A6000 has available to it. Whereas if you're using a third-party lens like the Sigma 30mm f1.4, you're not going to get all of those autofocus features and the autofocus isn't going to work as good. Now again, this isn't a downside for some people. Some people are more patient in taking their photos or taking more time. But when you're in a portrait shoot situation, time is often limited and sometimes you will have to work a lot quicker to get the images that you want or move to different locations. So it's really good to be able to know with confidence that your camera is nailing that focus and that the lens is not seeking or hunting in any way. So that's one reason why I like the 35mm f1.8 lens. So without further ado, I'm just going to show you some more sample images that I've taken with this lens, and I'll let you decide, is this great for portraits? So I hope you all enjoyed this video. Leave a comment down below and let me know what is your favorite portrait lens for the A6000. Also, please be sure to subscribe to my channel if you haven't already done so. I put out all kinds of different content about portrait photography and film photography, so if you're interested in that, please be sure to subscribe. And we'll see you soon, folks. This has been another episode of Dan Bullman Photography. Peace!